Today we are going to study the lecture number 15 of Phase B, which is the rate of creation. In this one, we are going to understand a little about how all creation in the entire universe is organized. We are going to see that it is organized by the law of seven. And by understanding this organization, we are going like to see the map that will help us to return to the absolute, to that source from where we all come. And we are, or the main goal of all this work of self-knowledge is actually that we can to conquer all these orders until we can get to move freely and at will and with total consciousness in each space of the universe, right? And well, the first thing that we must understand is that everything in this universe is like ordered by that law, by the law of seven. We have several laws in this universe. And for example, the law of three is the one that creates. You know that two forces, one positive and one negative, come together, and this union always generates a third force that is a creative fire, and that is how everything in the universe is created. That third force we have talked in previous lectures is the fire or the Christ, the universal Christ. Now, the law of seven, which is also known as the law of the sacred Epta Parapachinak, is the one that organizes, is the one that gives orders to everything in the universe. And we can easily see it in, for example, the 7 days of the week, or for example, the 7 visible colors of the rainbow, or the 7 bodies that composes us, or the 7 chakras, right? The 7 basic dimensions, the 7 deadly sins that we can transform into the 7 virtues of the soul, right? Or, for example, the 7 races that give a planet and each of its 7 sub-races, and many other things, right? We are going to see today that this universe, it has these orders that are the 7 cosmoses, which are 7 orders of worlds in which all creation in this universe is organized. We will see that creation is like descending, and we are going to see that as we descend and we move further and further away from the sacred absolute sun in creation, we penetrate worlds that are more and more complicated because automatism, mechanicality, right, and pain are introduced as we move further from the sacred absolute sun. And well, let's study each of these orders. The first order in the universe is called protocosmos. And to understand what this is, we must know that each universe of the infinite space has its own central sun. And the sum of such spiritual suns constitutes the first order, which is the protocosmos, which is the solar absolute. We also must know that the solar absolute is formed by multiple spiritual, transcendental, and divine suns. They really are extraordinary spiritual suns, oscillating with infinite splendors in space. Those are radiant spheres that astronomers could never perceive through their telescopes because these are spiritual suns, right? Here in the first order, in the protocosmos or first cosmos, there is no mechanical principle because this order is governed by only one law, okay? It means that there is completely freedom since the laws are actually limitations, right? And there we are all, totally free, only under one law, which is the law of love, right? The beings that inhabit this order, that already live consciously in the sacred absolute sun, they have completely freedom of being, and they can move at will in the whole universe, right? And well, in the central spiritual sun, that is governed by only one law, exists the total happiness. okay, the total happiness of the eternal living God. This order, the protocosmos, vibrates with the upper C musical note because it has the highest vibration, a vibration that is above all vibrations in this universe. We have like the 7 musical notes as vibrations in the cosmos in this universe. But as this first order is above all that, it is in like a higher octave. Okay, so it is like a higher musical, an upper C musical note. Okay, and well, the beings who have conquered within themselves that higher octave, that higher C note, are those who have already united with their own divine being, who have achieved the total self realization, who have worked to complete the 3 mountains of initiation, of which we have talked in previous phase V lectures. And they are the ones who have the right to move freely in this first order. They can move actually in different universes. And well, as I was saying, we are going to now to explain these orders, we are going to move like in a downward way, and we are going to see that as we get further and further away from this first order, from the sacred absolute sun, we are going to be penetrating more and more complicated orders and words. Because, for example, the second order, which is known as the Iocosmos, um, here we already have 3 laws, not only one. Now that we enter into one of any of those universes that exist in creation, we are actually within a second order. We are already in a universe of an endless space, a universe that, as you know, is composed of millions and millions of galaxies, of suns, of planets, and well, this one is known as the logoic world. That is, it is here in this second order in the Aya cosmos where the gods or the self-realized beings that make up the army of the boys come out to create things in that universe. They come out from the sacred absolute sun. They enter this second order to create or to destroy in case necessary. And they unfold into their 2 forces, the positive and the negative, the masculine and the feminine polarities of their energy. And then they join they join those 2 forces, and there is where the law of 3 like takes action to create anything in the universe. And then when the 2 forces of a god joins together, the third force, which is the fire, which is the Christ, can come out through his verb to create in form of a mantra. For example, they can give shape to anything in this universe, or they can destroy if necessary. Okay. And well, this logoic world, as I was saying, is controlled by the 3 primary forces that regulate and governs all creation. That are the main laws in this universe: the law of the Father, the law of the Son, and the law of the Holy Spirit. That is actually the law of 3. And the second order vibrates with the musical note B or T. And the Christ who are already, for example, when doing the work for self-realization, the ones that are already in the work of the 3rd mountain, they are the ones who are in the process of fusing with the Holy Spirit and with the force of the Son to later unite with the force of the Father. They are the ones who have already freedom of movement in this second cosmos. Okay, and well, the 3rd cosmos is the macrocosmos. And in this one, we are in any galaxy of an endless space. Imagine that we are not just in the universe, but now that we enter like in one galaxy, any of the millions of galaxies that make up a universe. And here we are right now in one of these galaxies. ours, for example, is known as the Milky Way, you know. And well, what is a galaxy? A galaxy is like a grouping of millions of solar systems, right? And each one of the galaxies in a universe is governed also by a central sun. For example, ours, the Milky Way, is governed by the central sun series. Yeah, actually, our galaxy revolves around that central sun. This third order, the macrocosmos, is controlled by six laws. It vibrates with the musical note La or A, and there have freedom of movement those who have already created their solar bodies on the first mountain of initiation and who have chosen the direct path by uniting with the Buddhic body or divine soul and therefore have passed on to the work of the second mountain. So these already Christs that are already working in the second mountain of initiation that they can move freely through their galaxy and nearby galaxies. So as you can see, as you advance in your inner work, you're going to be conquering these orders, and you're going to have the ability to know and to move at will into, for example, the galaxy when reaching this point. Okay, well, let's move to the fourth order on creation. This one is known as the deuterocosmos. This is already any separate solar system. Okay, imagine that you are not in the galaxy now, but that you enter, we have entered in this travel into one solar system. Every solar system, regardless of the galaxy to which it belongs, whether it is a matter or antimatter galaxy, is actually a deuterocosmos. And this order is made up of several planets. Every solar system is made up of several planets that revolve around a central sun in that solar system. For example, the central sun of our solar system is known as the sun of Ours. And well, this fourth order is controlled by 12 cosmic laws. So there we are already on to 12 laws. And it vibrates with the musical note Sol, right, or G. And to have freedom of movement in a mesocosmos, one must already have conquered the 12 laws internally, having created the causal body. For example, the nirvanis, the one that takes when reaching the point of this, choosing the path they choose, for example, the path of nirvana instead of the path of the Christ, which is a direct path, they have freedom of movement, or let's say their freedom of movement is limited to this fourth order. They can only move in their solar system and in neighboring solar systems, right? And well, let's move now to the fifth order, which is the mesocosmos. It is any planet in endless space. If we in that solar system enter to any of the planets on that solar system, we are already in a mesocosmos or in a fifth order. For example, if we enter our planet, which is the planet Earth, right? And well, we must know that there are as many planets in space as there are sands in the sea. Yeah. And undoubtedly, any of this, regardless of the cosmic center of gravitation, it is by itself a mesocosmos, and they are made up of millions or billions of inhabitants. Our planet Earth is not the only inhabited planet in the universe. Imagine that there are as many planets as sands in the sea. Imagine how many inhabitants can exist in the universe. But we, as our consciousness is asleep, and we have that enormous ego, we tend to believe that all the universe is just for us and that we are the only inhabitants in the universe. And it is not like that, okay? And well, this order The fifth order, the mesocosmos, is controlled by 24 laws. It vibrates with the musical note fa or F, right? And it has a central sun inside. Each planet has a central sun inside. That, for example, the central sun of our planet is known as Melchizedek. And well, with this we can see that everything created has like its conscious principle, which is the sun that regulates that creation. That is the case of any order. Okay, and for example, we are going to see the sixth order when we are already talking about the microcosmos, that is a human being on any of that planet, and they also has their inner sun, which is known as the nose atom that is in our heart. So that is like a conscious principle that regulates all this creation that is a microcosmos. And well, this is the sixth order. This is when we are on a planet and we enter, let's say like that, to any of the inhabitants of that planet, because each one of us is an authentic and legitimate microcosmos, because we are like a cosmos in miniature. So everything that is in the universe is inside ourselves. Sorry. That is why the Greeks used to say, "Man, know thyself, and you shall know the universe and the gods." Because actually, when we get to enter into ourselves, to get to know ourselves, we can get to know everything in the universe, because everything outside is inside of us. All the wisdom that we can find outside is actually inside of us. All the divine beings that are outside actually has an atom within ourselves. That is why it is so important, the work of self-knowledge. Okay, and well, any inhabitant of any of the cosmoses is an authentic microcosmos that has everything that exists inside. If we observe a human being, we are going to, and if we get to examine, for example, the germ cell of a human being in its ADN, we are going to find the 48 chromosomes, sorry, that are related to the 48 laws that control every human being. Because here in this order, we are already controlled by 48 laws. I know, obviously, that the official science has only managed to see 46 of these chromosomes, because two of them are etheric, okay, and they don't have the technology or the psychic capacity to get to observe all the 48 chromosomes in the ADN of a human being. Okay, and well, what else? This order vibrates with the musical note mi, and because that is the note with which our soul vibrates. As we saw, for example, in the Phase A conference, law of octaves and law of entropy, we saw those notes to which all of us have the right to when we come to this physical manifestation. As we are born, we are entitled to these three musical notes, the lowest one, the do, re, and mi, right? But what happens that our astral body, as it is lunar, it vibrates with the musical note re, because it lives in limbo, right? And our physical body, as is lunar, vibrates with the musical note do, right? Let's remember that we left limbo when we achieved the baptism. That we explained what baptism really is in the ninth lecture of the Phase B. Okay, now we know that a human being, inside of any human being, there are also a multitude of inhabitants that are his psychological defects. All the psychological defects that we carry inside ourselves is like a person. and they actually are wrong ways of being. Those are like the devils that live inside of us, and in within each human being we find that inferno. In his lower abdomen we find his infernal worlds full of demons or psychological eyes, which is our ego, right? And actually that is concomitant with what happens inside the planet Earth, because as it is within, so without, right? And as I was saying, we are psychologically inhabitants of limbo right now. However, when we begin to do the interior work, we manage to light the sacred fire of the Kundalini, and we manage to achieve baptism. Then we psychologically start living the limbo, and actually there we find that there are a whole world to do, because our inner earth is actually disorderly and empty, and we have to begin to populate our inner earth with the different parts of our being that we are going to be rescuing with the work of psychological death, right? Because inside each of our psychological defects we find a portion of our consciousness, which is an internal person that must inhabit our inner earth. Okay, so we must begin to order and to govern our inner universe. We need to start creating our internal bodies to get to transcend all these laws that are actually uh, governing us and doesn't let us move at will in all the orders of this universe. And for doing so, we have been given 324,000 opportunities in each cycle on the wheel of samsara. We have the right to 108 existences with a physical body, so that in one of those existences, we receive this knowledge, we start working on ourselves, and we start like conquering each of these orders. If we don't do it and we exhaust our 108 existences with human physical body in a cycle without eliminating all these psychological defects, without rescuing all the wisdom that is trapped in those defects, we are going to have to go through the process of involution that takes place in the seventh order. You can see here a human being full of psychological defects, and that is actually in our interior the seventh order, because the seventh order is hell. It's like the internal inferno on each planet, and as we are a microcosmos, that inferno actually lives inside of us. But this seventh order of world, the tritocosmos or the infernal worlds, exist within every planet. There, in every planet, we find the submerged mineral kingdom with its own atomic infernos. And these are always located within the interior of any planetary maze and in the infra dimensions of nature. There we find the nine Dante circles. We know them as not Dante circles due to the Divine Comedy, but they are actually like the nine circles in which hell is subdivided. The first of those circles is the circle of the moon, controlled by 96 laws. The second of those Dante circles is the circle of Mercury, controlled by 192 laws. The third is the circle of Venus, sorry, with 384 laws. The fourth is the circle of the Sun, with 768 laws. The fifth circle is the circle of Mars, controlled by 1,536 laws. The sixth circle is the circle of Jupiter, controlled by 3,072 laws. The seventh circle is the circle of Saturn, controlled by 6,144 laws. The eighth circle is that of Uranus, controlled by 12,288 laws. And the last and ninth circle is the sphere of Neptune, controlled by 24,576 laws. So as you can see, these 9 circles um, has like a lot of laws, because by immersing ourselves within increasingly complex laws, we obviously and progressively become independent of the will of the absolute, and we fall into the mechanical complication of all this great nature. If we are here in the physical world, present, living like the instant, we are ruled only by 48 laws, right? But as our psychological defects actually inhabit these infra dimensions, every time that we let one of those psychological defects manifest in us, actually we are ruled by much more limitations. By psychologically, we are ruled by many laws. If we lose the opportunities, the 108 opportunities in one cycle without doing the work we must do, we will need to go through the process of involution, actually living in these dense circles to and we are going to be subject directly by all these laws, by all of these limitations. That is why you are receiving this knowledge, that because we must do the work to fight tirelessly to free ourselves from all these laws, to free ourselves from all of our psychological defects, to free ourselves from the 48 laws under which we find ourselves with the physical body, but also to free ourselves from the 24, the 12, and the 6 laws, right? And also the 3 laws, to truly return to the sacred absolute sum of our system, and reach that point where only the law of love governs. And how are we going to do so? How are we going to return? Well, actually, by applying or by practicing the 3 factors for the revolution of our consciousness, which is to born spiritually by practicing the suprasexuality, by making a wise use of our sexual energy, also by practicing the psychological death, that is by working to eliminate our psychological defects from moment to moment, and by doing the great work of sacrificing ourselves for humanity, sharing with all humanity this knowledge that we are receiving, right? And by working with the 3 factors of consciousness revolution, we are going to be able to return triumphant, having recovered all the wisdom that we came here looking for, and having awakened 100% of our consciousness. We are going to become awakened beings, actually cosmic creators beings, with freedom of movement throughout the endless space. That is actually the purpose of working on ourselves and of achieving self-knowledge. Hi James, how are you? And well, this is today's lecture, the lecture on the ray of creation. I am going to be sending you, probably tomorrow, to our WhatsApp and Telegram groups a PDF with all the information we have shared with you today, so that you can read that information. If you have any doubts, you can check on that PDF and solve any concern. Anyways, remember that if you have any question, you can contact any of the administrators of the group, or you can leave your questions here in the video comments, and we will be gladly solving any question that you have in relation to this or any of the topics that we are sharing with you in this self-knowledge course. And I want to invite you for the next Phase B lecture that we are going to be studying next week, in which we are going to start a set of 2 conferences where we are going to study in detail the tritocosmos, or the infernal worlds that exist on our planet. We are going to see how the tritocosmos is composed. We are going to study in detail each one of those 9 circles. In the next conference, we are going to be studying the first 5 circles, right? The first 5 dentist circles due to the Divine Comedy. And in the lecture 17, we are going to study the last four circles, okay? And well, now I want to thank all of you who are here sharing with us. And well, have a great rest of the day. Ciao, ciao.